set to give the opening prayer at a Phoenix City Council meeting, and that is not sitting right with everyone. ABC 15's Noelani Graff live at City Hall tonight, getting the story from both sides here. Nohe, what'd you learn?
So, Stephanie, if you are in those council chambers next month, you're not going to hear from a reverend or a priest. Instead, it'll be a Satanic Templar member who starts off the meeting. The group says this is about freedom of religion. One city councilman says this is about showboating.
Yes, the city council members.
For city councilors, these chambers are hallowed ground where city laws are made. So at every meeting, they take a moment to say a prayer.
We're going to begin today's meeting with an invocation.
But the devil's in the details, as they say. At least he will be next month when Satanists will give the opening remarks.
And if you can, please stand for the invocation.
Instead of bowing their heads, some are raising an eyebrow at the idea. Councilman Sal DiCiccio raising the red flag on Twitter.
Well, I think it's just stupid sometimes to be politically correct, and this one fits that category.
DiCiccio says the city is trying too hard to be all-inclusive. He believes the Satanists are just trying to make a scene.
I think it's just a dumb idea. We do not legally have to do this.
Practicing member and legal representative Stu DeHaan says that's not true. While they organize on Facebook instead of a temple, they are still a recognized religion.
Just have a message that reason should come above all things, and all decisions should be made from a non-agnostic standpoint.
As far as the scene, he says don't expect any cloaked circle or sacrifice. You'll likely see this woman, Michelle Short, make a statement.
We're not here to be offensive, we're just here to participate.
So the city says, per the Supreme Court, it cannot dictate religious viewpoints or the content of a prayer. The Satanic Temple is based in Tucson, but they say opening prayer isn't part of the routine down there, so that's why they're coming to participate in Phoenix. And Stephanie, originally they only planned to bring a small handful of people. Now they're not sure how many will show up with this
kind of weekend, Madam President, I thought it was important to come to the floor to explain why, very briefly, to my colleagues, to explain what this resolution really is. This resolution is a total rewrite of the War Powers Clause of the United States Constitution. Let's be clear about that. It is essentially a declaration of international martial law, a sweeping transfer of military power to the president that will allow him or her to send U.S. troops almost anywhere in the world for almost any reason with absolutely no limitations.
Killed them for no reason. Everybody live from Ferguson. They just killed this nigga for no reason.
For no fucking reason. I'm breaking my motherfucking lease. Fuck this. They straight killed that boy for no motherfucking reason. She talking about some fireworks.
I heard, nah, them ain't not this time of the day. When no fireworks this early.
I'm in the bathroom in the shower. You not finna
What he do? What dude do?
I'm a daddy. Do you see a gun? Do you see a knife? Do you see anything that would have caused a threat to these motherfucking police officers? They shot that boy because they wanted to shoot that boy.
Why? Hold on, what?
Oh,
wait a minute, they just killed dude.
In the middle of the motherfucking street.
That's why they killed me.
We should have as much dialogue and openness as possible. Have you felt a change in the tone of feds out there? We certainly have. We used to could walk up to them and talk with the FBI agents in a friendly manner, unarmed and stuff. But the tenor has changed, and they have become more hardened. When they step out of their vehicles, now they're stepping out with their rifles. And they're not willing to engage in just friendly dialogue. And then I'm assuming that you're aware of all the efforts and the increase in manpower that they're ramping up. And we're saying, why the rattling of the saber? Why, when we're so far away from anybody out here in the middle of nowhere, why are you ramping it up? Why do you fly your planes over nonstop? And why do you have your drones? Because they're droning this now. And they're actually flying their photographer planes. They're doing all the things. They're doing all the things that shows that they want to take some kinetic action against us. And we're saying, why do you want to? Why be so threatening? Why are you threatening lethal force when we are so far away?
Do you really feel like they're making it up that they're going to take you to the peace?
All the behaviors is in the preparation of a campaign of some sort, and whether it's just a saber rattling to try to intimidate, or whether you're actually doing, we don't know. All we know is what we see. And so what you're also seeing, that's why you're seeing the uptick in the saber rattling from the feds, because they do not want to let go of this. They do not intend on doing it. And we do not intend to give it back.
Now laying out its legal argument for killing American citizens overseas without a trial. But what about targeting people on U.S. soil? Can they now kill American citizens inside the country? The head of the FBI, when asked about that on Capitol Hill yesterday, stumbled around on this.
Does that only apply to U.S. citizen that's overseas, or does that apply to U.S. citizen that's here?
I'd have to go back. I'm not certain whether that was addressed or not.
So that we have clarity here, he is not certain whether it was addressed, whether our government can kill our own people inside our own country. This really needs to be addressed. We can't just answer this question. No, the government doesn't kill our own people. We have a process for this. It's called the justice system. You file charges, you lock them up, you try them before a jury of their peers, and then that's how they don't kill our own people. Judge, the question is, can they kill our own citizens inside our own country?
Well, the answer,
this is a question we have to ask.
It's not a question that we should have to ask, and it's not a question that he should have evaded answering. I think he probably knows that the answer is no, but he doesn't want to frustrate his bosses who articulated just 2 days earlier that the answer is yes. Because at a speech on Tuesday at Northwestern University Law School, the Attorney General of the United States manifested extraordinary ignorance of the Constitution of the United States and suggested the president can kill anybody he wants outside the United States if that person is dangerous, if that person has committed crimes, and if it's impractical to arrest that person. Not in the opinion of a jury, but in the opinion of the president and some secret advisors. The Constitution says to the contrary. The Constitution says if the government wants your life or your liberty or your property, it has to articulate to a jury what law you have violated and prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt to that jury. It's called due process. Without due process, the government could take anything it wanted and kill anybody it wanted. And Attorney General Holder ought to know that. I suggest that Bob Mueller does. And the reason he evaded that answer is because he wants to keep his job.
Well, you heard what Eric Holder said. He said there is due process, but there is not due something or other.
Judicial process.
Not judicial process.
What the Attorney General said, let me make his argument. His argument is that there is a substituted form of due process. That if the president and his advisors carefully consider the danger of a human being and conclude that that human being needs to be stopped before that person causes any more danger, then the president can kill him. That's their argument. There is no case law that stands for that. There is no statute that authorizes it, and it directly defies the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Sounds like a crime against humanity. What's the difference between that and what Bashar al-Assad is doing to his own people? What is the difference?
Nothing. What's the difference between killing somebody, an American with a drone in Yemen and killing an American with a drone in Peoria? Nothing.
Right.
Same argument that Eric Holder made at the Northwestern Law School on Tuesday about al-Awlaki in Yemen could be made about somebody in Peoria tomorrow.
You make an illegal lane change in Hollywood on the 101 freeway, and a drone will just shoot you out of the sky and throw you, bury you.
Well, I don't know that it's going to.
I don't know either, but who'd have thought we'd ever get to hear?
Who would have thought that we'd even be having a conversation like this? That the head of the FBI would hesitate to answer a question that is so imbued in our history and our law and our values. Due process precedes punishment, that he can't answer that in public.
And we're worried about contraception.
Correct. We do not have our priorities straight. The last time the federal government claimed that it could kill Americans was in the Civil War. And even Lincoln said it could only be done during combat. This federal government, this administration says it can kill Americans when they're riding with their children in a car in a desert.
I don't know, George. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The following video details contents of Army Document FM 3-39.40 titled Internment and Resettlement Operations. This document has been signed by Joyce E. Morrow, which is the Administrator Assistant of the U.S. Army. This document is 325 pages long and starts on page 38, showing that it applies to U.S. citizens within U.S. territory. On page 38, it clearly states the detainment of citizens of the United States of America within the territory and according to the categories of individuals, primarily DCs, to be housed in IR facilities. On page 146 of this document, it addresses the detainment of U.S. citizens under the Identification of Prisoners section. It states that the first, last name, and middle initial must be put on the first line, and that the prisoner's social security number must also be taken. Prisoners are giving a registration number. 2 profile pictures are taken from the front, and fingerprints are taken according to AR 190-47. Included in these operations are organizations such as the Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, and the United Nations. On page 56, it states the duties of the Psychological Operations Officer, which identifies trained agitators and political leaders within the facility who may try to organize resistance or create disturbances, to develop and execute indoctrination programs to reduce or remove antagonistic attitudes, identifies political activists. On page 281, it goes into even more detail on how these PSYOPs are used to pacify the population and to ensure cooperation. Now on page 238, it gets into the conditions for the use of deadly force in the camps. And some of the justifications for the lethal force include to terminate an active escape attempt. Now that right there should show you that this isn't no peaceful, loving camp that they're sending you to rehabilitate and to get well. If you try to escape, they will use deadly force to terminate you, is how they put it. On page 244, it calls for the use of snipers during riots to, quote, scan the crowds for agitators and political riot leaders and fire lethal rounds if warranted. So they're used to scan these crowds, and if they think that you are a leader causing these riots in this crowd or agitating it, they can kill you. Now on page 260, it shows the basic layout for one of these camps. It depicts a tribunal area, holding areas, interrogation areas, and mortuaries. Each facility is designed to hold around 4,000 prisoners. Multiple layers of barbed wire wrap several of the internal compartments, and they also double wrap the outside of the whole facility, and it is protected by 24 guard watchtowers. On page 261, it depicts a civilian resettlement facility, which are designed to house 8,000 people. These facilities come with double barbed wire fencing around it with 16 guard towers of its own. Page 262, it shows us what the layout is for the facilities for non-compliant prisoners, designed to hold up to 300 prisoners with interrogation centers and is guarded by 13 guard towers. Now, there shouldn't be any question as to validity of some of these camps because we've seen them. Every camp is different. They are all across the United States, and the more you know, the better your chances of survival are. That's why we put this information out there in hopes that you share it with your friends, your family, with military, with people that are inside the police force, within your town, within your community, just to put these facts out there. These are downloads. I'll leave you links that come from transcripts from official Army documents that show the layout of these facilities. And if that wasn't enough, they are even on GoArmy.com. They are putting up ads for jobs for these positions, which I will show you here in a moment. And as we look at GoArmy.com, we see since 2009 they have been posting spots for these positions. And currently, right now, they're still hiring. Internment Resettlement Specialist, 31E. And it also has an overview of the job duties. And you will have supervision of confinement and detention operations, external security to facilities, counseling and guidance to individual prisoners within a rehabilitative program.